statistics that I'd found about sort of the market in general, fall through rates. And I'm going to come on later to how the auction model sort of gets around and some of these problems. But we all know fall through rates are sort of particularly high at the moment. 31% of all house sales had fallen through at least once before completion. And of course, as we know, that might still have taken months to get, before the fall through.
Yeah.
That could have been months.
3 or 4 months into that cycle for then that to happen. So it's...
Yeah. And then 3% of the above had fallen through 3 or 4 times. I mean, that could be a year or more, at least, of sales progress for no sale at the end. So 306,000 property transactions had fallen through last year. So that would have been 2023, which was up 12% on the previous year. And an average 18-week transaction time, if presented in the traditional manner, an 18-week transaction time, assuming you don't hit the above problems and have fall-throughs, I guess, because that average completion time will only be the ones that completed, isn't it? That doesn't account, for all of the fall-throughs above. Yeah,
that's some scary statistics there.
Isn't it? Yeah, it really is. And if you're a seller, I mean, that's just... it's just a desperate place to be in.
So you can't celebrate selling your house and when you accept the offer anymore, because there's you're still a 1 in 3 chance it's going to go through. It's going to fall through. Sorry, it's just
yes, yeah. It's really the start of a process, isn't it? It's not the conclusion of anything. And funny enough, I think some of the stuff that we'll come to actually is how this is flipped on its head in online auction model. So I've just got sort of some notes there. Problems with the current or traditional route to sale. Timescale we've mentioned, because I think we all know that from an offer being accepted in a traditional route, really, as we've just said, the process just begins, doesn't it? So all legal work, assessing of legal documents, really all the due diligence starts thereafter. And it's still highly possible there could be price negotiation based on what's found. Or complete fall through, frankly. And we'll come to how we turn this around. The legal process, obviously, we've talked a little bit about that, but we'll come to the difference with online auction. Non-committed buyers we'll definitely talk about, and that lack of, because there is just a lack of vetting, isn't it? You or I could wander into any estate agent and place bids without any finance behind us, in fact, without any intent.
Even worse.
But certainly as a buyer, you're not informed at that point, and I guess we'll come to legal pack and how auction model helps to make buyers more informed. Selling fee, I guess, can be a problem, and then generally mortgage availability and the legal process. They all mirror around each other, don't they? All these problems, but I guess they're all giving rise to this horrific fall through rate statistic and the long transaction time. We'll talk a little bit about how we try and counter. I'm going to take these out of order if that's all right, because we've just talked about some of the problems. So is it worth us talking about, do you think, the sort of legal process and legal pack and how that's... Yeah, do you want to say a little bit about that? Because it turns the problem on its head, doesn't it, shall we say?
Yeah, so exactly what you just said, Andrew. We flip everything, basically. So all the documents that would normally be obtained after a sale's agreed through the private treaty, we supply that all up front. So it gives the buyer a chance to... supposed to pass that to a solicitor for them to basically check that everything in that pack is kosher, everything's fine, there's no problems. They can raise inquiries to the seller solicitor if they want to, and then they make an informed decision to bid on that property. So they know that everything checks out and it's fine. So now the only thing then they've got to agree is the price. Whereas, obviously, like you said, the traditional is the other way, and then all the problems start after the sale's been agreed. So we try and alleviate that sort of thing. And that's why, I mean, just to put it out there, our fall through rate is 0.6%. So there's a massive difference between the traditional 31, I think you had it down as, and our 0.6. And that is because all that documentation is provided. So we get sellers only making bids if they're happy. And we do take financial commitment as well. But I'm sure we'll discuss that. I'm sure that'll be on there at some point. Regarding that.
It is, yeah.
The fees there are there, that's to use our solicitors. If you want to use your own solicitor, you are more than welcome to. It isn't you have to use ours. We offer it as a service, and it's up to you. My only concern is if you use your own solicitor, is we need that legal pack ideally within 10 working days. So please make sure your solicitor has the capacity to be able to deliver that legal pack. And then also there's only 28 days to complete. So there might still be a little bit of legal work between, and they just need to, again, the capacity to be able to do that, because there could be ramifications if you don't. So it's just making sure that your solicitor is competent enough to be able to deal with them timescales.
We always, I think Danny, I often say that I was selling one of my own properties through this route, and I always describe Patterson's recommended solicitors as annoyingly efficient because they sort of pounded the life out of me. But it is all part of the speed and the speed of the process.
It's just the same as that tenancy bit at the start, to be fair, isn't it? We want all that legal paperwork in place so that we can sell the property compliantly, because
absolutely
it's just the same. It's just the same sort of situation. But yeah, so we can offer that. We have 3 solicitors that we use for sellers. So if one capacity is full, we have others that we can pass to. So it's just there's always space, and that service will be given.
And of course, for the seller, it's this 995 including that, isn't it? But that also includes the legal pack. It's a very fair fee, to be fair.
Yeah, and I mean as well, you don't have to pay anything up front. It is just paid on completion. So even if you do go with ours, you get the legal pack, and for whatever reason you don't sell, you're not going to be billed anything. It's us that takes the financial hit of that legal pack cost. So it's all no sale, no fee as well, which again, to have legal work done and not have to pay for it is a big thing. Because again, if you're selling a private treaty and you don't sell, but your solicitor's done work, they'll still won't pay in.
Of course they will. So
again, it's that side fee as well.
Yeah. No, that's and then I guess the top one, the sales fee. I am always who pays our fees. Always the question that
you get asked. Yeah, of course. Okay. So basically the buyer pays it, just in a nutshell. So the buyers are going to pay 5% plus VAT to a minimum of £5,000 plus VAT. So you may be thinking, wow, that's a lot of money. But again, it's all about commitment. It's only having committed buyers buying that are willing to pay that, which again is the reason why our fall through rate is so low, because anyone that's actually buying is committed, and we make sure they're committed. One thing you haven't got on there, which I will just add, is as well as paying those fees, we also take a 5% deposit, which obviously does come off the house price on completion. However, if the buyer should pull out for whatever reason after exchange, that deposit does go to the seller. So it's a little bit of compensation, which again never gets, you won't find any other auction company, I think, especially, but I don't know many other even organisations that offer that compensation to a seller for a deal going through. I mean, you wouldn't mind a deal falling through if it meant you're going to get 5% as a compensation or a goodwill gesture. It's
because if I understand that this is collected from the buyer at the point the bid is successful, basically.
Correct. Yeah, as soon as the bid is accepted, we take those 2 fees.
Yeah. So it is an interesting point. If a seller happened to be one of the unfortunate 0.6%, if it falls through, they're actually going to get 5% of the accepted bid as compensation for the.
As compensation, yeah, it's a goodwill gesture from us. and then they can go on and sell it again the next day. And I mean, there's, depending on the reason why it's fallen through, but there's potentially like legal action they can take as well, which we will help with, to either sue the buyer or go after the difference between bids. But that's sort of like a whole different topic, I guess, to go into. But yeah, we do our best to look after the sellers in those situations to make sure they're compensated correctly and got protection, really.
Yeah, I can imagine if we went back to those, there's 300,000 sellers who would have loved to have had this, isn't there? Who had a fall through last year.
Absolutely.
They would have loved to have had this as part of their sales model.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and especially those ones, that 3%, 100 would probably have bit our hands off that have fallen through 3 or 4 times.
Absolutely.
They would have chomped at the bit. But I mean, yeah, if they've had 5% 3 times, then it's but yeah. So it's just there to. It's just all about commitment. That's what we want from buyers. Is commitment.
Yeah, and of course that whole 18-week thing. So in effect, this online auction route. So in effect, bid auction cycle happens. Let's assume it comes to a close and there's a successful bid. It's then this 28 days, isn't it? That's the sort of usual completion time thereafter.
Yeah, exactly. 28 days is the standard, but the seller can change that if they wish. So they can't make it shorter, but they can extend it if they need be. It's very rare that it happens because majority of people that are selling do just want to get rid. But I don't know. It may be that they live in it and they need to sell it through auction, and they just maybe need a little bit extra to find somewhere else. But they can always then, so say they extend it to 56 days, they can then ask to bring it forward to say maybe 33 if they've sorted themselves out, just to give them that peace of mind, the seller, that timescales on their side.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Because really, I mean, that's months saved, frankly, based on other methods. But it's good to know, in effect, there's this contractual sort of backstop of the 28 days that the buyer is required to complete within the 28-day period. If they happen to just be running a few days late because of legals and mortgage or something like that, then by agreement it can be extended. But as a seller, you have the backstop, don't you? Do you know what I mean? There's been a legal made with a bit of flexibility if people, if the seller's happy to let it go over a little bit while things happen. But, you wouldn't get that in a traditional sale, would you? Timescale is almost just how long's a piece of string? It's everyone's mercy, shall we say?
I think because we've obviously exchanged contracts at the accepting bid stage and the buyers have paid them 2 fees, I think as sellers usually are a bit more understanding if there need to be a little bit of an extension, which is completely down to the seller's choice, by the way. You don't have to do that, but I think they've had that peace of mind that the deal is tied up, so it's a little bit more flexible. Whereas with the traditional sale, if the buyer needs more time before exchange, then that gives more time for things to go wrong still or fall through. So it's not concrete yet, which can cause issues as well, I guess, for that peace of mind side. Yeah.
No, that's and then I think a big one that I often talk to sellers is the sort of buyer commitment and buyer validation, as I would call it. So I'll often describe the fact that anyone can come along and bid in a traditional process. There's not necessarily any proof that they have funds, have intent to complete, or in any rush to complete, all those sort of things.
Yeah.
And in effect, in this process, as we've described, so if someone is interested in an auction property, you'll probably describe this better than I, Danny, but in effect, they have to go through a formal registration process online. They have to submit ID. They enter online contracts. They submit credit card details. They commit to paying 5% deposit and the fee up front. There's so much commitment from the potential bidder that proves they're valid. And they have means and the intent to complete.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we usually get asked this actually is because, especially from estate agencies, because obviously if you're buying a private treaty property, you have to show the proof of funds and you have to or show your mortgage. We can't do that in the same way, just because if, say, an auction was to finish at 1 o'clock and someone wants to register a quote to one, but we've got to see the proof of funds before they can bid. It could take 15 minutes to get that information to us, so they might miss out, which therefore the sellers potentially missed out on another bid, which is more money for them. So by making them sign a contractual contract, it is, in my opinion, more airtight than just seeing a bank statement, because they could go out, they could show you it 1 minute and go out the next minute and spend it all. And then you still think they've got that money and they haven't. So it's, proof of funds doesn't really mean anything, in my opinion.
No.
Whereas a contract obviously is a contract.
Yeah, I guess you're right, because that is a contract to buy, isn't it? They've, in effect, legally entered into a contract to say they'll buy that property at that price within a 28-day period. You're right. It's very different to saying, I have the funds.
Yeah.
You're quite right. It's entirely up to them what they do with them. It might be a new car tomorrow, or another property.
Exactly. Yeah. They might have done that, and then they don't have the funds, or.
And actually, they could even be bidding in multiple. They could even make offers in multiple places in that sense, couldn't they? For example. But not many people would go through all of these steps to register to bid. To prove ID, to put their credit. I think it's the point you put your credit cards in, people realise as bidders it's serious, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. It's like, oh yeah, this is serious stuff. Let's not get this wrong.
And I think for me, that's something I draw on a lot with potential sellers, because, that short and tight, really all the stuff that's done up front, isn't it? It's to make sure the transaction's valid, frankly.
Yeah.
And that it kind of will.